Welcome to this recording, which is an introduction and an overview to the Manchester Thrive in Education local offer, which is an offer which is in place to support children and young people's mental health and well-being through schools and colleges. That's why we call it our Manchester Thrive in Education offer. This recording today is aimed at schools and colleges who would like to have another look at the offer, but also it's open to professionals, so colleagues from social care, from the police, from other organisations across Manchester can see the work that we're doing to support children and young people at this time. So I'm just going to introduce you to some of the organisations that form part of the local offer. So as you can see, we work with a range of NHS organisations and a range of charitable organisations, as well as educational psychology and Manchester City Council Education Department, the school nursing team, the healthy schools team, the MLCO, the MHCC, MFT, and all of these partners together, including M-Thrive and the Thrive Hubs, work together as partners to put together this offer for children and young people that we're sharing with you today. So I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of the session. So what we're hoping to achieve is an introduction to M-Thrive in Education and our partners, an understanding of the Thrive model of mental health, what the Manchester Thrive in Education offer is, so that if you're working with children and young people, you can ensure that you help to signpost them to that offer, an understanding of the universal, targeted and bespoke offer for schools and colleges, a brief overview of some case studies and the contact details of the different partners that make up M-Thrive in Education, so that you can follow up if you have any questions after this recording. I'm now going to introduce you to Sarah Yunus, who is going to talk you through the M-Thrive in Education, Thrive model of care and the Thrive language.
Hi everybody, if you just do the next slide, Sharon, please, thanks. So this is just looking at the Thrive model of understanding mental health for children and young people that we use in Manchester. And as you can see, there's a table there of the different levels in the quadrant, in the Thrive quadrant. And this just explains that generally 80 to 90% of children and young people in any population can be deemed as thriving. So that means they're doing well, they're okay, they don't have any emotional, mental health needs that need any input. 30% will fall into the getting advice cluster, 60% will fall into the getting help cluster of this 10 to 20% of young people that are left over from that aren't thriving. So for our service, we fall under the getting help cluster, and only 5% will need more help, and only 5% more will need getting risk support, which is more crisis support for children and young people with the most needs. So just thinking about the Manchester Thrive in Education offer. This is a new offer that started last year. It was developed as a recommendation as part of the Mental Health and Schools Green National Paper, which was in 2018. Initially, it starts with 25% of our schools and colleges receiving support from our service. It's part of a national trailblazer site that was developed through Greater Manchester Health and Social Care Partnership. It's a coordinated response with multi-agency joint working, and this is offered directly into schools, so it increases access to psychological therapies for children and young people in schools and colleges. It includes training, advice and consultation to staff in schools and colleges, and we work with any children and young people who attend Manchester schools. So we have young people that attend Manchester schools that live outside of Manchester, and we'll still engage with those as well. And it provides an opportunity for schools and colleges to be part of the evaluation process of this new service, and that will shape future delivery of these services to young people. So thinking about the Thrive model, there's 4 quadrants. There's getting advice, getting help, getting more help and getting risk support, and we sit in the getting help quadrant. So if you think about the quadrants, the getting advice quadrant is the part where young people are given advice. This is kind of the lowest level of support. It's usually a one-off contact that involves meeting with a young person or having a telephone contact and giving them advice and signposting them to the correct service. The next one is getting help, This is thinking about who you can email, call. It includes our service, and we're based sat in schools and colleges, and we meet with young people and parents on a one-to-one basis. The next one is more targeted support for getting more help. This is usually more specialist intervention and longer term treatment. And the getting risk support is for young people who are experiencing crisis and need some risk management from services such as the trauma support, children's services, CAMS, and maybe possible child protection support. I think I'm now handing over to Liz Rose from the safeguarding team at Education.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I'm just remind us really about the in-house system check for schools particularly. It's just a reminder to look into our own settings and check on the expertise that exists within our buildings before we need to reach out and see who we might need to contact in the universal section. Since we last shared this information, I'm sure several colleagues in all schools may have been further upskilled with maybe mental health training or the anxiety pathway awareness, or some involvement even with the mental health practitioners that have been working in schools for a while now. And your own policies have probably been updated in light of changes that have happened. So it's just a reminder really to check what's within school before we reach out to our universal partners. So here are our universal services again, and this links in with the Manchester Emotional Resilience Mental Health and Wellbeing Directory. So it's colour coded, so it matches. So if you were wanting to contact these universal services, if you use the directory in tandem, it will have a collection of links and emails and contact people who are allied to all these services and the particular offers that they might have that you are looking for to support you at the moment. So I won't read them all out to you. You can have a look there, pause the slide if you want to look through and see if you can identify the people you think may need to help you with your current situation. We don't forget our VCS e-partners, our charity and voluntary services, as well as the ones that you kind of call on regularly. But as a guide, we would sort of say you might want to look at healthy schools and the anxiety-based school avoidance pathway as a first port of call if you're looking for support and help within school. I'll hand you back over to Sharon for the next presentation.
Thanks, Liz. So I just want to spend a couple of minutes now just telling everybody about the anxiety-based school avoidance guidance and pathway. As you will all be aware, we're sharing this presentation at a time where we are still working with COVID. Although much of life is starting to return to normal, we are still under COVID regulations. And we know that has been quite impactful on children and young people. It means some children and young people have not returned to school or are struggling to return to school. But we also know that before COVID, there were some of our children and young people who found it difficult at times to get to school. So we've created this anxiety-based school avoidance document. It's been created with a range of partners, with schools, with colleges, with children and young people, with CAMS, with early help, with education psychology. And we think it's a really, really great tool that schools have already managed to get benefit from since it was introduced in September 2020. So what is anxiety-based school avoidance? This is when absence from school is a way of a child or a young person coping with their overwhelming feelings of anxiety that they might be experiencing. And it occurs when the stress of that anxiety is greater than their ability to cope, which acts as a pull factor that rather than them attending school, they're overcome by those factors, which means that they're not able to attend school. So how can we support children and young people with anxiety-based school avoidance? I'd really advise colleagues in schools, but also professionals, to look at this guidance to see how they can support children and young people. But some key messages are: treat it like any other additional need. It happens when the stresses of school outstrip the ability to cope. There are often warning signs. It can be really upsetting for families, especially where they've had no other previous problems and suddenly children are not wanting to attend school and they themselves are really struggling with that. It's really important that we listen to families and that we work with them, and that we don't blame them, because they are doing their best for their child. It's important to get a proper assessment, and it's important to understand that we recognise that autistic children are more at risk of anxiety-based school avoidance. Really do try to be aware of the risk factors and consider whether there's a possibility of unmet or undiagnosed need. And that's where it's important that you speak to your link education psychologist. Transition is also a common trigger point, so that move from primary to secondary or secondary to college can be a real challenge for children and young people. Be prepared to be flexible. What you're dealing with here is somebody who has got a mental health problem. It's an issue. And there are no quick fixes here, but the earlier we support them and the earlier we work with children and young people and families, we can help them to make things better. So one of the key things that we do is we use the assess, plan, do, review model that you'll be familiar with, that education psychologists and schools do when they're looking at putting an educational health and care plan together. So it's important that we gather the information, look at the risk factors, and consider every factor and assess what the issue may be. Then plan how we're going to support that children and young person and their family with an action plan. Then it's really important that we do those actions and that we stick to that plan and that we're not tempted to deviate from it. It's important to regularly review the plan and to celebrate small steps with progress, being mindful that that progress can be quite patchy to start with. So if you're looking about working with a young person and you're concerned about them, if they're struggling to attend school, the anxiety-based school avoidance guidance is your first port of call. If you're working with a young person or family, ask the school or college if they're accessing this guidance. We'd really be keen to promote you working with this pathway. So the next area of getting advice is education psychology. Now, I've already touched upon the important role that education psychologists play in our school and colleges. A number of our schools and colleges work with One Education or with Catalyst Education, as well as other providers, to support children and young people, as well as looking at the whole school approach. So the area in which the education psychologist would be working would be primarily at the getting advice and getting help part of the Thrive quadrant. They provide a range of support at organisational, group and individual level. So they might provide training for school staff in supporting children and young people. They might do some small group work. Some of it might be linked to play therapy, and they might do individual work with children and young people. Obviously, a really important part of the education psychology work is that prevention to support children and young people before there are issues and to help them to explore and move forward. So it's really important that at organisational level we do things like looking at staff wellbeing, encouraging parent and pupil voice, so that we can support at the child and young person level and help them to develop their sense of self and their sense of identity, so that their well-being is improved and they're able to move forward and be happy and successful. So as I've already said, the plan, do, review model is something that's really important that the education psychology team will support schools and colleges with helping children and young people. And that's something that they might do before they're considering an educational health and care plan, before we're getting to that statutory support level. However, if it does seem that statutory assessment is what will help that young person to get the support that they need, then that's where getting help, where the education psychology team fits into the getting help part of the Thrive quadrant. And they can help that young person, they can help the school or setting with short-term and long-term outcomes to support that young person's development. So before I hand over to Kimberly to talk about school nursing and healthy schools, I just want to add that the education psychologist is working at that getting advice and getting help support, but they also would benefit from, at this stage, looking at early help as well. So there are a range of ways in which at that universal level that Liz was talking about, we can help children and young people to get advice and get help to continue to thrive, rather than letting it get to the point where they need to get more help or get risk support. So I'm now going to hand over to Kimberly from the Healthy Schools team. I don't know why it's gone back to the very beginning of the presentation. So Kimberly, I don't know if you can just move it forward, but if you just bear with us. Has it frozen? You're muted, Kimberly.
Sorry, everyone. I think it should be on the right slide now.
It's still showing the mThrive partners for myself. Is that the same for everybody else? Can I take back control and see if we can, if I can just guide you through your slides, Kimberly? I'm really sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so I'll hand back to Kimberly now.
Okay. So hi everyone, I'm Kimberly, and like Sharon was saying, I'm the team lead for the Healthy Schools team in Manchester, and that sits in the school health service alongside school nursing. So for my section today, it's just a brief overview of the offers from the school health service. So these services, they're free to use. All our resources are available to all schools in Manchester. So that's primary, secondary and special schools. But it's important to just be aware that over the last year, we have adopted a new temporary model to help us in responding to COVID-19. So as part of that, each school in the city has been allocated to a school health team. And that is a combined team, including school nurses and a member of the Healthy Schools team. And a new referral form into that service has been circulated to all schools in Manchester, explaining the details of what can be referred to school health at the moment. So other important services to be aware of, we've got the Chat Health service. So Chat Health is a way for young people in Manchester to get advice and support around any health related issue. It's a direct text messaging service into school health. It's safe, it's secure, it's monitored by a team of school nurses, and any young person aged between 11 and 16 can text for advice on any health related issue. So that might be healthy relationships, emotional health and well-being, healthy eating, or any general health concerns as well. So that's Monday to Friday, 9 till 4. And the ethos really behind that is just to improve that access to healthcare for young people across the city. We've also launched a new Health for Teens website in Manchester. So this is a website alongside the school health service that young people can access. It signposts them to appropriate services within the city. It's also a range of health related articles published every month, so that young people can access information that is relevant to them in a confidential way. So if we could just move on to this slide now, looks at the Healthy Schools offer. So the Healthy Schools team is commissioned in Manchester to support schools with public health education, and that looks at a range of different speciality areas, including mental health and well-being, social and emotional health, relationships, sex education, healthy lifestyles, injury prevention, drugs and alcohol, and PSHE. So primarily for this session, we're going to be looking at the offer around mental health and well-being, but obviously with any whole school approach, we would expect all of those areas to feed into schools' PSHE offer and health education offer. So what can we provide to schools? We look at policy development and support, training, so that might be face-to-face depending on the situation, or virtual, which a lot of the training, as you can expect, has been this year. Network meetings, one-to-one consultations, resource and curriculum development, and specific COVID-19 recovery support resources. So you can see on the slide our email address. If you've got any queries about that offer, please do get in touch. But now I'm just going to briefly talk about the recovery offer. So we know that the impact of COVID-19 on mental health and well-being, even at the start of the pandemic, was huge in terms of mental health. So we were seeing increased reports of anxiety, sleep problems, low mood, self-harm, as well as stress and depression increasing amongst education staff. and that has only continued over the last year. We did conduct a survey at the start of the year, which did highlight a lot of those issues, as well as schools requesting more support around bereavement and transition as well, kind of with the backdrop of COVID-19. So the response was pulling together a recovery toolkit, which is free to access. Please just get in touch if you haven't seen that resource. And we've also pulled together a Padlet, which is an online notice board that pulls together all of our free recovery resources for schools and colleges to access in Manchester. Just moving on to the next slide. We also offer training. So you can see down the left-hand side there, kind of more detail around the types of training that we offer, as well as more detail on some of the resources. And this includes our full PSHE curriculum for Manchester schools that was launched last October, which comes complete with full PowerPoints and lesson plans. So again, please just get in touch if that's not something that you are familiar with. And then just moving on to my last slide, which looks at the Wellbeing for Education Return Programme. So many of you might be familiar with this. This was a programme funded by the Department for Education and the Department for Health and Social Care, along with Health Education England and Public Health England and the NHS, to look at how the government could support schools with the recovery around mental health training for staff working in schools and colleges. So in Manchester, we worked with all of the partners. We worked with education to come up with a programme that was Manchester specific, that were catered for the needs of our kind of community. And we came up with a training programme that was delivered through the existing Healthy Schools programme. So as part of that, last November, we offered initial mental health training sessions. These were virtual, and we did those in two parts. So the first part of that training looked at the importance of a whole school and college approach, and the second section looked at responding to specific difficulties, so bereavement, loss, anxiety, low mood, stress, and trauma. So those sessions are available as video recordings now, but we've moved on into the second phase, really, which looks at individualised and personalised support across this academic year, and this will be continuing into next academic year through to January. So as part of that, schools and colleges can access a mental health and wellbeing audit, which looks at your support, and it uses the 8 principles from Public Health England. I won't go through them all, but includes things like staff training, your ethos, you work with parents. And then based on that audit, we can see what support you need, offer you individual bespoke training and resources, as well as a cohesive universal training programme, which includes things like supporting young people through periods of adversity, body image and consultation, and working with your parents. So that's just a little bit about that programme, but again, please get in touch for more information. And I'm going to hand back over to Sarah now, who's going to talk through more targeted support as part of Thrive in Education.
Thanks, Kimberly. Hi, everybody. So just looking at our specific Manchester Thrive in Education project, this is a service that's in the targeted support category. It's a mixture of commercial and free universal support, which includes our VCSE partners. So this, as I said before, this is a new development for Manchester. It's part of the national mental health support teams that's being rolled out across the UK. As part of the team, there will be education mental health practitioners from CAMS and mental health practitioners from the VCSE partners in Manchester, and 1 education psychologist. And we hope to work really closely alongside the 3 new Manchester Thrive hubs. We offer interventions into secondary and primary schools and colleges. And in the first year, we've been offering this service to our priority schools who are targeted for this support. Year on year, this offer will increase gradually, and over a 10-year plan is that 100% of schools will receive a mental health support team worker in their school. The schools that we've given priority to this school year were chosen following discussions between all partner agencies. and they are this data was collected about schools' readiness to work on the whole school approach, and also consideration was given to their previous involvement in the Greater Manchester Mental Health Schools project and Healthy Schools project that Kimberly's just explained. So thinking about Manchester Thriving Education offering to schools, our interventions are offered predominantly at the Getting Advice and Getting Help section of the Thrive model. We offer low intensity support, which is delivered directly to children and young people at the school or college. These interventions are evidence-based. They include cognitive behavioural therapy-based, one-to-one interventions, counselling and other psychotherapeutic approaches. The interventions are time limited, they're quite brief, they're usually between 6 and 10 sessions. We use routine outcome monitoring measures with each young person and parent, so we can kind of get a baseline when they start treatment and then track their improvements based on their goals throughout the therapy. And as I said before, our work is to complement existing school offers such as school pastoral support teams, counsellors and peer mentors. So I'll just hand over now to my colleague Rachel Pilling, who is the service lead for the Manchester Thrive Hubs.
Hello everybody, I'm Rachel Pilling, as Sarah's just introduced, and I'm the service manager for the hubs in Manchester. So in terms of the Manchester Thrive Hubs, we work really closely with Manchester Thrive in education. So we are a front door to Manchester's emotional wellbeing and mental health offer. Manchester Thrive Hubs currently starting with the North Hub, which has been launched in April. So we've started our launch, our pilot launch, and we will provide emotional wellbeing and mental health support available in our community in 3 localities. So we are the Manchester Thrive in your locality. The North Hub launch has been shared with all partners, services and education within the North locality. The other hubs will go live later in 2021 after the initial launch in the North has been reviewed before the final Thrive offer is established. And we'll have lots of opportunity to come out and communicate and share with you where we're up to with these hubs and what's working well. This will bring together existing services and support into a new multi-agency working together offer for children and young people to enable them to access mental health and emotional well-being at their local hub, which will offer a local informed menu for them. Alongside the development of the Thrive Hubs, we will also be developing our digital front door directory offer, and this will be offering a wealth of resources and signposting to services, organisations and activities, which will be updated and kept current, aligned to with the resources to assist our children and young people and families within our localities, services and key partners in their own response to meet the needs of our children and young people to empower them to thrive. Okay, so how are we going to do this? So we've been doing an awful lot of work with our emotional mental health and wellbeing services. So for example, core CAMS, Emerge and Early Help. And we've also been doing an awful lot of work on how anybody can access us in the hub. So in terms of our pathways into the hub, we are offering a seamless pathway into our emotional health and wellbeing services in Manchester via our hubs. So we've got a pathway where we work really closely with core CAMS to identify anybody who doesn't quite meet their criteria and actually sits in the getting advice and signposting quadrant or the getting help. And we pick those young people up, have those conversations with them and identify the right route for them. We also offer a pathway, a drop-in pathway into our hubs. We will work really closely with GPs and family practices so they can identify and access us and signpost the children and young people to us before it gets to that referral for getting help. We work really closely with agencies, services and education, including other services in the localities like Greater Manchester Police. The idea of us as a hub is the getting advice and signposting and seeking out to getting that more help, whether it's getting help around intervention services. It might be that we work really closely with signposting to 42nd Street or Cooth, and actually we can offer that intervention, that interim temporary intervention. Or it might be that working with what's going on in the community currently, we can start to identify and engage our children and young people with what's going on in their community. Okay, so how are we going to do this? We're going to implement Thrive in the community by enhancing and maximising and empowering current offers. And we can do that by recognising any gaps. So what we want to do is we want to bring our communities back to life through this journey, coming towards us getting a little bit back to normality and recognising what gaps are out there with everything that's been discussed in this presentation. Working with our children, young people and families to complement the current enhanced youth support offer in their community. Work really closely with parents and parents groups, closely with Cooth and other key partners. Be heavily involved in the ACES project and programmes across Manchester. We've started a pathway where we work really closely with early help and how we can complement each other and support each other with helping our children and young people with the emotional and mental health and wellbeing services for them. We're going to work really closely with 42nd Street and other partners that really do meet the needs of our children and young people to encourage them and to empower them to thrive within their community. We are based in hubs, but ultimately our aim is that we're going to have a hub and spoke model. And the reason we're going to do this is to have that shared decision making with our children and young people to empower them in making the decision as to where they would like to meet us. It might be that they don't feel comfortable coming to us in the hub. So we will reach out to them and we will speak to them as to where they would like to meet us to identify how they can thrive within their community. We'll just go to the next slide. Okay, so who are we? You'll have plenty of opportunity throughout our launch and throughout us getting set up for our central and south hubs to meet us, find out who we are, get to know what our offer is, and work with us on meeting the needs of the children and young people you would like us to support. So currently then, we have our North Hub, which has gone into pilot, so this is being launched as we speak. Our Central and South hubs will be launched later in 2021. In these hubs, you have myself, who's the service manager over the 3 localities. In each hub, there will be a team leader, a practitioner, a navigator, and a pathfinder. And our key team are there to identify what's available for our children and young people to get them help in terms of the signposting and what's available for them to get them to become interactive and engage within their communities and seek any services that would meet their needs. So that's us. We are the hubs. I look forward to meeting you all, and I'm going to pass you back over to Sarah.
Thanks, Rachel. That's great. Hi, everybody. I'm just going to talk about case studies of young people that we've worked with via our Thriving Education team. So just thinking about what therapies are available and what an EMHP does. That's an education mental health practitioner, and also what does a mental health practitioner do. So the EMHPs are from CAMS and are trained in CBT informed low intensity therapy, and the mental health practitioners are from the VCSE organisations and are trained in a variety of counselling and psychosocial supports. And this first case study is from one of our partners, Place to Be. They work in primary schools in Manchester. So it starts off, it refers to a 6-year-old boy. The mental health lead in school discusses the boy with the mental health practitioner, The boys previously witnessed domestic violence in the family home and parents have now separated. According to the class teacher, the boy acts out aggressively to children at times and can sometimes appear upset and withdrawn in school. So meetings held, the boy, parents and mental health lead agree that there will be a referral to place to be and parental consent is gained. The MHP carries out an assessment with which includes the parent, teacher and child individually, and 8 to 12 sessions of play therapy are offered. Following this, routine outcome measures are used throughout, and at the end of the intervention, there's been a reduction in emotional and hyperactivity scores. Following this, the class teacher shares that she no longer finds this boy's behaviour challenging in school, and mum finds that her son is much happier and calmer within the home. So this case study looks at an education mental health practitioner. So this is from our CAMS team, and this refers to a 15-year-old boy who is presenting in school as withdrawn, and there's been a deterioration in his attainment within the school. So the form teacher notices this. She discusses it with the mental health lead, and reports that the boy appears miserable since his parents have separated, and he's had to move to an area which is further away from school. And the effect of this is that he doesn't see as much of his friends, and he's unable to attend football and other after-school activities, as he can't get transport home to his new address. So the mental health lead sits down with the boy. They agree to a referral to the Thriving Education team, and parental consent is gained. And then the mental health lead does this by phoning parents. So since COVID and school closures, we've done all of our parent contact and assessments via telephone, which seems to work for now. The education mental health practitioner then gathers information from school parents and then meets with the boy for an initial assessment. Following this, he was offered 6 to 8 sessions of CBT informed therapy, and the parents were included at the beginning, middle and end of the intervention. And this next case study, this is from 42nd Street and Manchester Mines. I think it's one that's been kind of put together jointly. So several months later, oh no, is this referring to the, all right. Several months later, the 15-year-old boy becomes withdrawn and angry. His dad wants no contact with him and has, in his words, moved on to another family and forgotten about me. He feels inadequate at school in his performance and thinks no one likes him. He says he has no friends. I think we've jumped a slide, Sharon, is that right? Is there an introduction to this one? Oh no, sorry, I'm sorry. What happens is, yes, so that it refers to the first one, sorry about this. And then the boy finishes his contact with the MHP and then several months later presents in school as withdrawn and angry and says that he's upset about his body, he thinks that his dad's forgotten about him. So then the young person says he feels rejected and wants his pain to go away. So the mental health lead then explains that there's another offer in school, which is the 42nd Street or Manchester Mind mental health practitioner offer. And so the young person ends up working with the mental health lead, as I think additionally, to talk about his additional difficulties. So the young person says he would like to speak to someone about how he is feeling in more detail. He's happy for his mum to know too. The mental health lead completes a referral with the young person. He's then offered 6 to 12 sessions by the MHP. An assessment is carried out and the sessions are young person centred, covering a solution focused approach and a range of therapeutic interventions, including psychosocial support and/or counselling.
Thanks, Sarah. Sorry, the slide slowed down a little bit there. Would you mind just saying a little bit about how the consent aspect works? Because I know when we did this presentation last time for schools and colleges, it was important then to understand about how we gained consent.
Yeah, so generally speaking, we for any young person that's under 16, we would require consent from the young person and from the parents and carers. To ensure that everybody's kind of involved in the assessment, involved in any safety planning, and involved in us sharing information with school, the GP, parents, and the young person. If a young person under 16 doesn't want to consent, then we will use Gillick and Fraser competence to, we'd always encourage that young person for us to work towards sharing with parents and carers, but we can work with young people if they absolutely do not consent to information being shared. And for over 16s up to 18s, then we do not need parental consent. We usually ask if we can get it and get their involvement, but we don't have to have it. So this case study is regarding a young person in college. So the Thriving Education offers input for young people up to 18 years of age. This includes colleges and sixth form provisions. So some of the schools that we're working have a sixth form provision, and we will offer our service to that. And we also work with Manchester College at the minute, Openshaw campus and Northern campus. Both education and mental health practitioners can work with young people without parental consent after 16 years of age. This is a stated preference, and like I've just explained, we always work towards trying to encourage young people to share the difficulties with parents and carers, just because this supports recovery and kind of people becoming better. We've got strong links with the Emerge 16-17 CAMS team who work across Manchester, and we also work closely with other agencies to promote smooth transition into adult services. This can include university mental health services and the adult increasing access to psychological therapy service. So this is why consent's key, really, so that we can work towards sharing information across agencies to ensure that young people can access services into adulthood if that's needed. And I'll just hand back to Sharon Gardner now, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. So we've talked about the getting advice and getting help. We've talked about getting more help. And I'm now just going to give a brief overview into the getting risk support area of the Thrive quadrant, focusing on the bespoke support that we offer to children and young people through schools and colleges at this time. So this bespoke support would usually be triggered by a significant event or a thematic concern that might affect a school. And we would put support in a range of ways. So first of all, we'll talk about critical incident support. So if there is a significant incident which might affect the ability of the school or college to continue its services, Manchester City Council commissions the One Education Critical Incident Psychology team to provide a response team to support the school that is dealing with that critical incident. And schools will be aware of that, and they know that they can contact their senior school quality assurance officer, or that they can contact Ben Powell at One Education to get that support. In addition to that, schools can also commission their own trauma support, and there's some information on the slide about the One Education emotional trauma support. Catalyst Psychology and other firms do also offer this, and that support comes in a range of forms, including therapeutic interventions which are bespoke to the needs of children and staff in school and in other settings to help meet a wide range of mental health needs. The last area of bespoke support that I want to just briefly mention is the team around the school or college. This is an intervention that we've established over the last 18 months in Manchester, and it's a really strong multi-agency support team which is established by the local authority following a specific event or particular themes. And the members of the team will include the Senior School Quality Assurance Officer, various NHS organisations, that might be school nursing, CAMS, Healthy Schools, Early Help, Children's Services, the police, the Safeguarding and Education team, and other partners as appropriate. And the purpose of that is very much to provide support around a particular significant event or themes, but also continuing ongoing support and review. And when it's ready for that school or college that they feel that they've now received the support that they need from those partners, that they feel in a stronger position, then that's the point where the team around the school or college would be stepped down. But I think it's really important that both schools and colleges and partners and professionals are aware of that bespoke offer that is available to support children and young people in our schools and colleges at this time. So that's the end of our presentation today. I hope that you found it helpful. If you do want any further information about any of the areas that we've covered today, there are some contact details available in this presentation. Those contact details are for the colleagues that have delivered this presentation, and my thanks go to Sarah Eunice, to Kimberly Evans, to Liz Rose, and to Rachel Pilling for delivering this presentation, which just hopes to give you an overview for schools and colleges and professionals of our Thrive in Education local offer. And we're sharing this with you at the same time as the Mental Health Awareness Week, which starts on the 10th of May 2021. We really hope that this is a useful introduction for you and guides you to look for the further information and support that is available to help children and young people in Manchester. Thanks for watching this video.